like to welcome you to our TARDIS.
Thank you.
Which is
bigger on the inside.
Smaller on the outside for sure. So we'd like to welcome Louise Jameson.
Hi.
Who most people will know as Leela from the Fourth Doctor era. Who, I'm going to be completely honest, I think you had some of the better Tom Baker episodes.
We had some. We had Bob Holmes, didn't we?
Yeah.
After me, there was no Bob Holmes on the Tom Baker's
That's
episodes.
true. But I think I enjoyed a lot of the ones you read. I always say that Tom Baker's best part of his run was early to mid, and you were right there, right after Sarah Jane.
I think it's when he was happiest as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was riding high with that one.
Yeah. The last couple of years of it, it started getting very dark and.
Did it? I think I missed out on some of those.
No,
I watched the new one.
No, but the episodes with you I thought were great.
Thank you.
So I'm sure I know Nicole has a few questions for you.
Well, first of all, I know you started out in theater and went to Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, classical background. So I was just curious, when you got into television, was that kind of the same process as on the stage?
No, very different, especially with Doctor Who, because it was such a technical show. Because CGI didn't exist, you were really having to hit your marks. There were find your lights, lean on that foot so that the camera could just get, all those technical things which now are second nature. I really had to learn in a hurry, but of course I had the lovely Pennant Roberts teaching me, so it was a doddle really. I think other actors have had a far harder time. But it was a very deliberate choice. I'd done a lot of theatre. I'd done 2 years with the Royal Shakespeare Company and done some quite nice roles there, so I got myself quite a name in the 5 or 6 years I've been working, and the odd bit of television. But then my agent said, okay, TV series time. So I just sat tight until one came along. There it is. So now it's my pension.
Well, what I was really curious about was last year at Gallifrey 1, Philip Hinchcliffe was talking about your character, and he said that he saw Leela as being a Pygmalion story.
Yeah.
So did he tell you that was your...
No, not really. We knew it was kind of teacher-pupil, and of course that was explored more in Talons of Weng Chiang than any other story, and we had the odd nod to it, like him teaching me to write or playing chess with K9, but I do think that could have been exploited a lot further, really.
Because that's what I was wondering, if you saw Leela's story as like an Eliza Doolittle character.
I saw it more of her educating the Doctor, telling him that sometimes you've just got to get in there and stop being reasonable.
And I also was kind of curious, because we asked Peter Davison about how much input he was given about creating the Doctor, and he said almost none. So for the companions, did you get a more specific, like, this is how we want you to play Leela?
No, again, I was lucky enough to have Pennant Roberts directing my first episode, so I was given the costume, I was given the first script, and I thought, well, she's very visceral, so I'll look at my dog, I'll look at the little girl upstairs, very intelligent, uneducated, eager to learn about life. I came in with body language first and dialogue second, which is not usual. Normally everything I do is sprung from the text, but because it was such a long-standing character, I thought I really needed to get the whole body thing going. The sitting cross-legged, the not knowing how to use an armchair, the sometimes sucking a thumb and rocking and not really knowing why, all that. Just trying to get our body right first.
I think you just described her character better than I've ever been able to by saying she's intelligent yet uneducated.
Yeah.
Because she had a good knack of associating things that she didn't understand with something she did understand.
Yes.
Which I thought was very clever to show that, she might not be like the Doctor, but she has an intelligence that.
And we were in the middle of a feminist wave in Britain at the time. The Equal Rights Bill had just come through, so I was absolutely determined not to make her stupid, because that would have been quite easy to do.
Yeah. And I think that would have took away from it completely, though.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason I enjoyed watching, you and Tom do those characters was because she had a level of common sense and instinct that the Doctor didn't.
And a banter. We had a bit of a banter going, yeah. I wish they'd done a bit more of that, really. We do it with Big Finish quite a lot.
Yeah, I've heard a few of them. They're very good, yeah. And it was nice that Big Finish picked it up so we knew where your character
Wasn't
went.
it? How lucky am I?
Yeah.
Really, how lucky am I? Mind you, Gallifrey survives now.
I know.
So maybe Leela does
And Leela,
too.
last I heard, was living on Gallifrey.
Yeah.
So
I think Andrew's probably long gone though.
yeah, I was happy that Gallifrey's back in a sense anyway. So
Opens the door for you to make a return to the show now.
Let Mr. Moffat know. We're starting a campaign.
We'll start it here. The other thing that I was kind of wondering when you were talking about creating the character, you mentioned the costume. Did that really shape also how you saw Leela? Because that was quite a distinctive costume.
Yeah, the costume gets talked about a lot. As far as I was concerned, she was a supine girl living in the jungle. What else is she going to wear but animal skins? It's also very hard. What else is she going to wear but something skimpy? So it didn't feel gratuitous to me. Of course, with hindsight, you think how clever the BBC were, because they give me all this, she's highly intelligent, and she's good, and she's strong, and she's by the way, you're not wearing anything. Okay. Naive as I was. And of course it used to come on after the football results, didn't it? So they hooked in that audience very quickly.
True. Yeah, I mean, if you image search on Google for Leela Doctor Who, the image that comes up is, there's one image that always comes up of you holding the knife.
Yeah.
And it's
Wouldn't be allowed now, would it?
Probably not so much.
No. Fraser always says to me, we had the best legs and we both carried a knife.
Was that an issue at the time? That
The costume?
Leela had the knife and was quick
Mary
to pull
Whitehouse.
it?
Do you know about Mary Whitehouse?
Yes.
You heard of Mary? Yeah, we used to rub our hands in glee when she complained because it added another 2 million onto the viewing. Because people thought, this must be a good story if she's whinging on. So, it did. The violence caused more of a stir than the lack of clothes.
Well, I also wondered when you took on the role, I know that was also something Phil Pinchcliffe said, that he wanted to create this role for the girls, which was interesting that then he put you in the costume kind of for the dads. But did you, from the fans at the time, did you have a lot of girls writing to you? Did you feel
I have it more now. I did have a lot of mums writing to me going, thank you, this is a good role model for my daughter, because it was very much a kids' programme then. But yesterday in the panel, 3 or 4 14-year-old young women got up and just went, really, one of them was near to tears going, it's just so brilliant to have a role model like that. And I'm so touched. I mean, I've always been pleased to be part of Doctor Who, but this year it's really hit home just how fortunate I am to be part of this iconic, wonderful, extraordinary programme that just seems to embrace anybody and everybody.
Were you surprised at how strong it came back?
Yeah. I'm delighted.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so was I. I
always knew the potential was there, because it's just too wacky not to.
Well, you can go anywhere.
But you think back in the day it had an Australian writer, a female producer, an Asian director.
Yeah.
It's like BBC went, how many boxes can we tick with this programme and just get it, solve all our problems in one, because they had to use a certain amount of, ethnicity, they had to use a certain number of women, they had to, tick. And then, of course, look what happened. See what happens, you put a woman in charge?
Well, they pulled it off, and then trying to find a way to replace your lead actor. I mean, coming up with the whole idea of him regenerating the way he does was
brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think that the weight of responsibility for the future of the programme fell on Patrick's shoulders, and he's the one that really pulled it off, followed by Christopher Eccleston. Fast forward how many years?
Yeah, Eccleston had a big important
responsibility
job when he came back.
And I know he's not very good at the celebrity side of the job, because Doctor Who's really 2 jobs. It's the performance and it's this. And he's not very good at this, but he's a brilliant actor. That can't be underestimated. What a good job he did, I think.
I agree. I was in London for the first time ever with Joanna here in 2005, and we walked past a I'm not sure if they're called bus stops, bus shelters, or whatever in the UK. And there was a poster, and it said, "Coming soon, Doctor Who," and it was Chris Eccleston and Billie Piper. And I walked past it, and I was looking, and I stopped. She kept walking, and I walked backwards, and I just stood there, and I stared. Because I was so happy that the show that I grew up with that I loved so much.
It was coming back.
Yeah, and she's like, what? I'm like, I couldn't even
Did you
say
know
anything.
the show then?
She didn't know the show at all.
Oh, poor you. You got hauled in.
I talked about it for like
But
a
then
long
he
time
started
after that.
showing me the older shows.
Oh, okay,
And
so
so
you-
I've seen your role,
Okay.
and you're brilliant.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things that I really like about Leela was that she was kind of different from all the other companions, and she wasn't always screaming and
Yes.
asking for help. And I know you mentioned yesterday that sometimes you would look at the script and go, well, Leela wouldn't do
Yeah.
that. So did you have a lot of control over
Not a lot, no, but there were certain things that I, because you learn to own the character, you're with it longer than any other director, any other producer. You know, the only other person who was with it as long was Tom, and he was in constant battle with Leela because he didn't really want Leela in the programme. So I got fiercely possessive of her and her attitudes and the way she works. And David Richardson, at Big Finish, says you are, what was his phrase? Fiercely protective of her, and I am. If they ask her to do something completely out of character and it isn't explained later in the script, I'm like on that phone going, no, you can't. People go, oh, it's just an audio, but it isn't just an audio. For you lot, it has to be absolutely bang on the nose, because otherwise, what's the point? So I don't change whole stories or demand a lot more attention. I just think that all the little visceral traits that I've given her need to stay in place.
And I mean, you mentioned your Big Finish audios. So have you been able to do more with Leela in the audios that you couldn't get into in the show? Or
Much more. And because art reflects the society of the time, of course, the companion, like the companions in the modern series, get a much fairer crack of the whip of the adventure, as it were. I mean, some of them I'm there going, "What is it, Doctor?" But other times I mean, there's one story called The Wrath of Iceni that was written by John Dorney, where the Doctor and Leela fall out big time. She goes off with Boudica or Boatseer. And it's quite moving. She really chooses one over the other, and then has to eat humble pie and come back. And they have her Big Finish, have her falling in love, and she gets heartbroken again. And Andrew turns out to be a monster, and all the stories. They really explored her big time.
and I know you just wrote a story.
Yeah, co-wrote with Nigel Fairs, who's my writing partner and my gay best friend. Every girl should have one, I tell you. Yeah, we have.
So what inspired you to, I know you had your one-woman show and you've written other things, but what made you decide to finally start writing for Leela?
Actually, the fans, the Doctor Who fandom, they've got such an extraordinary imagination. And imagination can be your best friend and your worst enemy. It can stop you leaving the room because you don't want to open that door because you're frightened of what's the other side. And it can get you that job because you imagine yourself sitting in that chair running that company, having these people assist you, even before you go for the interview. If you've had that imagination, you're more likely to get the interview. So I thought it would be interesting to do a story, and I think Doctor Who fans have these polar opposites within the fandom. You've got highly intelligent people and people that are very challenged, and yet you're all part of this family that somehow gets Doctor Who. And imagination is a big part of that. So I thought it would be good to have imagination as the enemy and also the rescuer, that somehow the same thing could be the force behind succeeding or failure. Which way will it go?
So are you, this one isn't out yet, it's
No,
coming out
it's
next
called The
year.
Abandoned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you planning on writing more?
Yeah. They've actually asked me to write for another series, which I'm not allowed to talk about yet, which is another iconic series from England back in the 70s. And I also might be I will be directing another one. So I'm going to be part of Big Finish in many ways.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you keep them busy. That's great.
Yeah, don't
it's always
stop
good
me.
to see that, and you've had a good career afterwards too.
Yeah.
I mean, you were on EastEnders for a little bit.
Yeah.
Doc Martin.
Yeah.
Just to name two of the more popular ones people here would know.
Yes.
So, very cool.
And I don't know how soon you'll get it, but I've filmed a horror called Tractate Middath,
Okay.
which is going out on BBC Two, we think Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, not sure yet, which was written and directed by Mark Gatiss, who's part of the whole Doctor Who family. So, first job I've ever got through text. Are you free? Yeah, I am. Okay, do you want a job? Yeah, I'd love one. Okay, done. No interview, no reading of script, nothing.
Nice.
And also, I know you still do a lot of theater.
Yes.
You just got nominated for the
Office
right?
Award, which is like off-Broadway. Yeah. Wonderful play, really interesting play called Gutted, which was about paedophilia and incest and single parents and growing up in a housing estate and all the stuff that people don't really want to talk about. It's kind of nil-by-mouth stuff. You know the film Nil by Mouth?
No.
It's really
Nicole doesn't.
it's really violent, difficult stuff to watch. I think sometimes to tackle that stuff in a theatre is easier because there's a bit of you that has a safety net because you know the violence isn't real. Sometimes in films it can be so graphic that I can't go there anyway. I can't quite go there.
Yeah.
But in a theatre somehow you can just feel your velvet seat underneath you a bit, your person beside you. So you are in this safe group energy. But nevertheless, I think those subjects need to be tackled.
Well, somebody keeps poking their head from around the corner, so I
Okay,
think
I
we're
need to
pretty much
move
up.
on, yeah.
But it was a pleasure meeting you.
Lovely to meet you as well.
Thank
Sorry
you
you're
for
missing
joining us.
Peter's panel, aren't you?
Enjoy the rest of your time in Chicago.
Okay, all right, lovely. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
I should say I'm sitting here with Michael Jayston, who of course played the Valeyard on Doctor Who. But before getting into your Doctor Who work, I have to admit I've seen a lot of your work and was a fan of your other work.
You're not old enough. You must have
DVDs?
seen. Yes, you see. They all say that. Like what?
Well, I've seen your Jane Eyre.
Oh yeah, I was very proud of that. And at the time I didn't know. They did a poll recently, and I hope I'm not sounding falsely modest, but I got voted the best Rochester, and that included Orson Welles, and I thought, hang on, who have they asked? It might have been mentally deficient people they've asked about this, but a lot of people said it was because our version of it was the full story, virtually. We spent all that time with the young Jane at Lowood and various other, and I think that's why it was that popular, because we tried to put everything into it. Whereas some of the other Jane Eyres and people who played Rochester, it was elongated, or he turned Rochester into some sort of megalomaniac, which he wasn't. I know he had that wife up in the attic, the mad wife, but it was better that than putting her into an asylum as they used to in those days. So he was. I got a letter from a Mother Superior when I was doing that, saying what a Christian person Rochester was. Discuss for O level or something.
But yeah,
and it's very peculiar because it's gone out on. It went out on DVD for the Daily Telegraph in London about 5 years ago, and I get a lot of letters from 18-year-olds now, and I send them a letter back looking what I look like now, and on the back of it I say, this is what I look like now, isn't it a shame?
you were a very good Rochester, I thought.
Thank you.
And also, I really enjoyed Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Oh, they're repeating that in England at the moment. Not on the major channels, on one of the Channel 4 or something.
But what I was noticing with your career was also, I mean, you've worked with a lot of people who are like legends.
Oh, no.
And in particular, I was kind of wondering, because The Third Man is one of my favorite movies, and you worked with Carol Reed as well on film.
My God, you've researched that, haven't you? But unfortunately, Carol Reed, he was coming to the end of his career, and he wasn't very well on that film, and it was Public Eye, Private Ear, wasn't it, with Mia Farrow, which was, and Topol, and the writer at one point wanted to take his name away from it because he thought it was being very badly produced, and I don't think it was a great film at all. Well, he wasn't anywhere near a great film. It didn't get particularly good notices, but Carol Reed was fantastic to work with, and it was great working with Mia Farrow. It was a bit daunting because I'd seen her in Rosemary's Baby and one or two other things, and she was absolutely charming. But my first scene with her, they did it out of context, was dancing with her and giving her a kiss. And I thought, how am I going to do this? Because, in my younger days I used to play parts where I did kiss actresses, but generally you knew them and you got on a joking kind of level before you... But this was just... and she was marvellous about it. She said something like, after one scene, she said, have you been practising this? I said, well, no, who with? I mean, she was absolutely charming. I think she's a bit of an eccentric, but I admire the work she's doing for various charities in the States at the moment. And she's had a fairly checkered career when you think she's married to Frank Sinatra and Woody Allen. I don't know, who's her husband now? I don't know.
But also, I was just wondering, because when you've worked with all these people, was there anyone that when you got the job, you were like, I can't believe I'm in a television program or film with this person, or...
Well, on Nicholas and Alexandra, I auditioned with a Swedish actress called Liv Ullmann, who I'd seen in a lot of Ingmar Bergman films because she was married to him at that time. I think she'd split up by the time I did this audition, and I was a bit she'd got the car, she was charming as well, but her acting was so powerful that halfway through one of the audition scenes I thought, I've got to... Don't forget, Nicholas isn't a strong man, so I'm weak, but I'll have a go back on that sort of level. And she was so powerful, she didn't get the part because Sam Spiegel, stupidly, didn't like her accent. Now, if you know anything about it, Alexandra was German and would have had an accent. He also turned down Max von Sydow, who was, well, he's with my agent. He doesn't act much now. He's about 90, but he's one of the top 20 actors of all time to play Rasputin. And that was before Tom Baker got the part. He didn't like his accent. Now, Rasputin was a peasant. Could easily have had an accent. But I think it was because Max von Sydow probably wanted too much money, and Sam was a bit mean like that. So I was in awe of Liv Ullmann, and then next time I auditioned it was with Janet Sussman, and I got the car to the studios. But and Olivier, although Laurence Olivier put everybody at ease, but I was in awe when I first of all worked with him, but then when you got on a certain level, he was just like another actor, one of the lads, and treated us on the same level. He was a marvellous director and could be quite cruel. There was a lovely director called Jonathan Miller in England who done a lot of opera and stuff, and he said once in an interview, when he was asked about Olivier, he said, like a father. And the interviewer went, He said, no, I mean a father in all aspects. Could be cruel, could be kind, could be this and that, but a proper, I mean, without being cruel. I don't mean cruel on the level of, but a disciplinarian. If you didn't do anything right, everything fell on you from a great height.
And
Burt Lancaster was another one in a terrible film called, Zulu Dawn, which was the prequel to Zulu. And in fact, Zulu Dawn had far more actors in it that were known than Zulu did. But it was Bert was playing some sort of South African Rough Rider, and on his first appearance, he had to ride up from about 50 yards away on a horse. All the English actors crowded to see this. Well, Burt Lancaster was one of the greats of all time. To see his first entrance, galloped up, hit his marks, said, "Was that okay?" And the director said, "I think we ought to do it." Okay, well, did it exactly the same. And it sounds over sentimental, but it was great to see this legend riding up on a horse. And there again, I thought, my God, if you'd told me about 15 years ago, I'd have been working in the same film as Burt Lancaster.
And I said you mentioned Tom Baker, and obviously he went on to be the Doctor. And I know you mentioned yesterday at your panel that you were friends with Tom Baker after. Oh
yeah, I'd met him very briefly before Nicholas Alexandra, but then after Nicholas Alexandra, in fact, the film hardly did anybody any good career-wise, because it wasn't a great film and it wasn't a terrible film. It was sort of middling, I thought. I mean, it was ruined by the producer, Sam Spiegel. That's a different story. But then Tom did a film with Pasolini, and then he was working on a building site when he got Doctor Who. This sounds slightly politically incorrect, but he told me that when he got that Doctor Who thing, he was working on this building site for about a few weeks, and there was a very gorgeous girl in the pub who was serving behind the bar, and nothing was going on. And then when suddenly he gets Doctor Who, and Tom said, "Guess what happened that night, Michael?" Well, fame, power is, you know, some people fall for it. Although, I mean, don't get me wrong, Tom in those days, I mean, he still is a very charming human being, eccentric and quite mad in some ways. He can be quite naughty, but of course, at his age, I find as I get older, without being absolutely rude, I can be a bit naughty with people, and they don't mind because they think it's he's a silly old whatever they call it, twerp.
So I was just wondering, since you were friends then with Tom Baker when he was the Doctor, were you familiar with the show before he got cast, or?
No, because I was working a hell of a lot. I saw one or two Patrick Troutman ones, and I worked with Patrick a couple of years after that on radio. I liked Patrick because he was an eccentric person in real life, yeah, because I remember once somebody told me they couldn't find him on filming, and they were by the seaside, and somebody followed some footsteps, and they wanted him to do this scene, and they found Patrick behind a sand dune, just looking out at sea with playing a mouth organ to himself. No, but what did you ask me?
How familiar you were with
the
program? Yeah.
Saw some of Patrick Troutman. I saw some of Tom, because I knew him. I saw quite a few of Tom, and I knew him when he was married to Lala, who was one of the companions, and I knew a lot of people on it. But then it was tricky because there was no recording facilities in those days, really, although they were too expensive.
Yeah.
So if I was working in the theatre, I didn't see much of it. And then I saw Pertwee. Was that before Tom?
Yes.
Yes. I saw some of Pertwee. And then I didn't see much of Peter Davison, although I knew him, because I was working somewhere. And I've seen them. I've generally seen. I saw Tom more than anybody, apart from recently. I like Tennant a lot, and I saw some of Eccleston's and Matt Smith, of course.
So I mean, obviously, then eventually with Colin Baker's Doctor, you got cast as the Valeyard,
Yeah.
So, I know you kind of addressed this yesterday also, but when you were cast, what did they tell you about the part you were playing?
Well, they didn't tell me anything because there were various directors on it. There were about 3 or 4 writers. I mean, it was there as the evil side of the Doctor. Mm-hmm. So I accepted it as that. But don't forget, he didn't have that kind of importance in those days. Mm-hmm. I was just playing a part that was in a fairly successful, long-running series, and I just accepted it as a part, happy to be in it, play the part, and then go home. Mm-hmm. So it didn't have any significance as it does now, because as you and all the fans know, I am one of the Doctors. Mm-hmm. And so was Dr. Hurt, who appeared last... Dr. Hurt, John Hurt.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's something that actually you have the distinction of being the only person to have played both the Doctor and James Bond.
Oh, yes. But James Bond only on radio.
Yes. But I did notice, that's a title that only you hold, the Doctor and James Bond. And
That's
also...
true, but... sorry, go on.
I was just curious. I also, when I was reading that, saw... Was it true you were considered to play James Bond?
Yes. Me and... I was up for it with an actor called Patrick Mower, who's in a long-running series in England at the moment called Emmerdale, which I was in for about a few years ago. But no, I met Broccoli. I met Cubby Broccoli's, the producer. I met his daughter, and I met one of the directors. Whether I'd have got it or not, I don't know. But then Roger Moore decided to do some more, so you don't know. Mm-hmm. They might have chosen somebody else.
Yes. I think you would have been very good James Bond.
Thank you. I did a thing called Quilla, which I don't think has ever been shown in the States. And because the BBC were running out of money, let's say Guatemala, I'd finish up in a little village in Sussex called Littlehampton, and they got some palm trees and things like that in it. It was nonsense.
And I was just curious again, because I should ask about the Valyard. Was that, I just was always kind of curious then, how, do you enjoy playing villains? Or does it just does it matter to you if the role's a hero villain?
I haven't played all that many villains, actually. Mm-hmm. I played Danny once in Night Must Fall, written by Emlyn Williams. That was on stage years ago. And that was, it was on tour, and it was a long time ago. I enjoy playing the Valyard because, in fact, you can do what you like with villains. Play it any way you like. Like you can play Doctor Who any way you like, and he gets away with murder because he can say, they say, "What are we doing in Rome?" Well, I'm the Doctor.
And when you took the part, did you ever think that, like 25 years later, and there's people here dressed as your character walking around? I've seen 2 Valyards today.
I've said that to a friend of mine called Ray Brooks, who actually, very few people know this. He was at a Doctor Who convention. He played the companion of the Peter Cushing Doctor, which was a film. Mm-hmm. I don't know when they did that.
Mid-60s?
But he said he would have known. After all these years, a show that really started off children and a family show would have this enormity. We never believed. But how do you never know, do you? It's like Coronation Street. It was going to be called, that's in England, you don't get it over here, I don't think.
No, but
that's been going for over 50 years. And they were going to call it something else. I forget what they wanted to call it. But they thought Coronation was a good thing. It wasn't all that long after the Queen had been crowned. Mm-hmm. But you never know with certain things that carry on. I did a thing called UFO, and I signed some autographs of people who... This was just before Nicholas Alexander. It was a science fiction series, but they've still got their fans. It finished years ago, but they've still got the fans who watch it and talk about it, and I've forgotten all about it. So I have no idea. I can understand it, because Doctor Who's always against evil. always against evil in the world, and I think everybody can relate to that. And it's taken off in the States, I think.
Yeah, this, in the last few years, it really...
And I think now they're making it for the American market more than they are the British market.
A few more episodes set in America, a few more...
Yep. They'll have Abraham Lincoln soon.
But also...
And interrupting the Gettysburg oration.
They probably will soon. They've had Nixon on, so...
Oh, of course, yes.
But also, I know you reprised the role of the Valeyard for a Big Finish audio.
Yeah.
So
In Jessup Scars.
Was that... Were you able to do anything with the character there that you couldn't do in the show? Because I know now the character would be a little more defined. You said when you were playing him...
Well, no, because whatever and it was very well written, whatever the lines were, then you play them as the lines. I didn't find it difficult at all, because because I hadn't done the Valeyard fairly recently, I had to look at the television just to get what kind of a voice I knew what voice I was using, but I realised that the voice I thought I was going to use was exactly the same as the one I'd used on television, up to the fact that I got a bit older. But it was, no, I didn't find it difficult at all.
And do you enjoy doing the audio plays then? Because I know you've done several, I said, in America.
I've just done The Trial of the Valeyard, which I did with Colin Baker and Linda Bellingham. The three of us.
And I think we're starting to run out of time, but I was just wondering, I know you talked yesterday about the fact that probably the Valeyard, you didn't think Stephen Moffat's going to bring him back. But a lot of the fans are talking because it's about time for the Valeyard to reappear.
Yes, but this has been going on for about a year and a half now, and I'd love to be in it again, but I think Moffat's got different ideas, and I haven't seen him. I think I told you I was in I had a one part in a series called Press Gang, which Moffat, it was when he was first starting out, and I knew he was going places because he was brilliant writing. I was playing some strange character called Colonel X. But I don't think Moffat would do it, and anyway, he's the kind of a man I should imagine doesn't want to be pressurised. But I'd love to do it, and they know I'm one of the doctors, like all the fans do. So
yes.
It's annoying that they won't admit it. And my character, the Valeyard, was mentioned about 2 episodes ago or something.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one. I was away. In what context was that?
It was in mentioning the names that the doctors were known
yes.
by, and it said, you will be called the Valeyard, you will...
So I was part of a list.
It was a very short list that you were mentioned, so Stephen Moffat acknowledged that you were there.
Oh, did he?
With the Valeyard, but then he went on.
Well, why should he come back, really, when you think about it? Although they brought they brought Tom Baker back.
Yes.
For that one that was last Saturday or something. It's amazing nowadays that you can see them. I'd forgotten it was shown in the States, because I was saying, it was shown in England, and they said, we saw it.
Big event, lots of theaters, sold out.
90 countries. Simultaneously. Some people were getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
It's the kind of fans there are. I said, have you done, I know we're just about out of time, but I was just wondering, is there anything else you've done that's gotten this kind of fan response?
No, not at all. It's amazing, really, because I was on it for about, 4 or 5 months?
Yeah,
No.
14 episodes? Really?
No, never. Jane Eyre up to a point. But that was only it was repeated, and then for about 2 or 3 years, and then you're far too young. Most people who come up to me and said, I loved you in Jane Eyre, I virtually know how old they were, because I worked back from when they were 15 or 16, and now they're in their 50s, or a bit older.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. I think that's our 20 minutes. It's a pleasure interviewing you.
It's a pleasure talking to you as well.
Thank you.